That's all I could think about.
Data, evidence.
Look how he took these guys. Because I thought they were all yours. So I was confused.
That's okay.
So now it looks good. Now it's all
So, quick little recap, and we'll get into those examples again. Remember, your data, your evidence leads to your overall claim. The warrant reasoning is what connects those things together. So, if claim, I'm pretty bummed this morning. Data, evidence, grounds. The Super Bowl was dumb.
yes. Fact.
Okay. So right now, you're saying something in affirmative.
Yeah.
Carrot, did you say fact?
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know what you were doing, but you were doing hand gestures that would be in agreement. I did not state a warrant or a reasoning. But what was the implied warrant or reasoning? I didn't say it, but what's the implication about the reasoning as to why I'm bummed about the Super Bowl? It was boring. Okay, so I could have been disappointed in the fact that the Patriots won and the Rams didn't win. What else could be?
The score was 3-0.
Okay, so it was a low-scoring game. Rams' offense was nowhere to be found, all those things. So you're understanding what that warrant, what that reasoning is, okay? So for most of the simple little arguments that we make, this stuff goes unstated. Say you had an essay assignment due on Thursday. Hey, my essay assignment's not due on Thursday. Why not? No school. The implication would, or you could say it's too cold. The implication then, the reasoning becomes it's too cold to have school. Since we're not at school, things will get pushed back a few days. Now that essay assignment's going to be due on Wednesday or whatnot. So a lot of times, basic arguments, this stuff ends up being implied. Now remember, when we start doing arguments, we'll want to state that reasoning to make it as clear as possible, because that's really where the whole evidence aspect is going to be coming from, as to how your evidence leads to your overall claim. But when you're doing basic little things, simple little arguments, that's probably going to be unstated more often than not. Remember, on Thursday, your quiz is going to look similar to this one, and we did these first two, where you'll have 3 statements, and you'll have to identify what's the data, what's the reasoning, what's the warrant, what's the claim. Of those 3, the one that I would start with to try to identify first would be, what do you think? The claim. I think the claim's the easiest one to identify. If it has the word should in it, that's probably going to mean that that's going to be your claim, but it doesn't have to be should. It doesn't have to be value-based for it to be a claim. So identify the claim. I then usually go for the evidence and then try to figure out what would be the connection between the two. So, we could have done like 4-day weeks for school, but we got year-round classes. So year-round classes lead to higher test scores. Schools in Japan have year-round classes, and Japanese students have higher test scores. U.S. schools should have year-round classes. Of these 3, which one would be my overall claim? What's the argument we're trying to make, Eric? So your U.S. schools should have year-round classes, and not meaning that you have school 365 days a year, but as opposed to a 3-month summer break, it would still be 180 schools kind of spread out a little bit more around the school year.
I'm going to say the data is the second one.
Schools in Japan have year-round classes, and Japanese students, plural, have higher test scores. So the connection between the two, what's linking it would be the idea that, well, I guess having these year-round classes must lead to higher test scores. Notice, the warrant ends up being the link, okay? So my claim, the main thing about my claim is year-round classes. The main piece of evidence that I have is dealing with higher test scores, so that warrant is what's connecting the idea of the year-round classes to the higher test scores. Any questions about how the setup is going to be for Thursday? Groups of 3 statements, that way. No. Yes, you schizophrenic self. Me, myself, and I. You can do that. Or Thomas D. Shiflett and Aaron Sparks and George Speed. All right. Uh-oh. We have a gentleman at the bottom of the stairs. His Super Bowl Sunday was worse than mine. We have a damsel in distress.
Looks like the painting with the screen.
Like Humpty Dumpty. Margaret and her husband Charles got into a fight. She storms out of the house and leaves him at home all by himself. Margaret goes to her country club, very swanky couple, where there's a party going on. Everyone there compliments Margaret on her dress and how well it fits her slender figure, and this makes her feel just ever so better. Margaret left just before 1 in the morning, late party, and invited a few friends to follow her home for one more drink. She got home 10 minutes before they arrived, but when her friends rang the doorbell, Margaret ran outside saying, "Something terrible happened. Charles slipped and fell on the stairs. He was coming down for another drink, and I think he's dead. Oh my God, what should I do?" The police concluded that Charles died from a wound on the head and confirmed the fact that he'd been drunk. What do you think happened? So wound on the head, meaning, you know, that the fall could have simply been the wound, or if you think he was attacked or pushed or whatever. So, individually, not in groups of 3, but individually, and we'll go back to the picture, I want you to make a claim. So this is your opinion. What do you think happened to Charles? Present some evidence. So support your opinion with concrete information, testimony, written documents, whatever, descriptions of the conditions. Again, the picture will come up. And then for your warrant or reasoning, explain how your evidence supports the claim. So what would be the generally accepted rule that is going to be connecting your evidence back to your overall claim? And we can zoom in on different parts if you want. But taking a look, make your claim. So what's your opinion as to what happened, pushed, fall, whatever, have some evidence to support it, and then be able to kind of connect that evidence back. So Byron, in the kitchen, she has something going on, something on the frying pan. Whoa. So we got some frying pans in the kitchen. Remember, she gets home before people are coming, so she has some stuff going. That's his fancy bathrobe. So,
What's in his hand?
over here, looks like that would be his beverage, since he was intoxicated. Carpet seems to be tacked down appropriately. Some kind of mirror, looks like some sconces here. Yeah.
Also, why would you cook things? So her.
You got what you needed, Aiden? You got what you needed? Okay. Margaret. Maggie, Margaret, Peg, Peggy.
I think these are people that are Peggy.
Yeah, well, why do people call
What's her name, Margaret?
Yeah. Her name is Peggy.
Let's listen to Bruce Springsteen. Big Bruce Springsteen.
Which is in the game for John. Except for Mike.
You know what that is?
How many think she's involved?
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
Aiden is fourth.
So, Jenna's saying no, Crystal saying no, Emmy saying no. Okay. Nick saying no? Oh, hand was not? Okay. What would be reasons why she was pushed for those who think that's... What's your evidence?
So, generally, when I fall down the stairs, I imagine you'd make a little bit of a commotion, bump into things. There's a mirror, some candelabras or whatever. It's mounted on the wall. And she also made food in the background, which is interesting. So your husband falls, and you go make food, right? That seems a little weird. I feel like
Okay, so your first piece of evidence is
that he would bump into things when he's falling down.
So this wouldn't be perfectly
It
lined.
would not be perfectly lined. Something would be crashing down. Maybe he wouldn't fall just like straight forward and then do somersaults like in a cartoon. He'd bump into things, especially if it's
Now your food thing. You're suggesting she makes the food then after he falls, or?
It just why even like that just confuses me. Like,
Okay.
Exactly. You go turn it off.
Carrick?
I was gonna say like, okay, so his head is first, so
Yeah,
that makes me think like he got pushed because he could have been facing her like right behind
You
her.
would just somersault down.
Yeah, because like if you're facing forward and you fall down the stairs, normally like even if you're going like head over feet, like how would you just do a full 360 on the thing?
You just did a farm. You try to do it.
So if would you want, just for clarification, should it be feet first or should it be flipped over? Okay.
I think just his body should be on his stomach,
Okay.
not on his back. Because if you trip down the stairs, you'd be facing this way down the stairs.
What if he fell up?
What he's facing right now, it's like he's facing.
Hey, what do you know? We have stairs right over there, and we have 16 contestants.
Hey,
I just said that.
We could go reenact and see what. Grant.
Also, in the story, it says that she was summoned 10 minutes before the house was, and then she just like happened to come out and say, "What should I do about this?" Like, if your husband fell in the
You
stairs,
wait 10 minutes.
wouldn't you like call somebody
Yeah.
and not ask?
Maybe the way
Not ask, what should I do about this?
So,
maybe he'll wake up.
so the evidence would be the fact that she is running out and saying, "Hey, something terrible happened." Your warrant, your reasoning, your link would be it should be more of a reaction to call for help, like
Yeah.
call police, 911, something
not,
like
not
that,
ask, what should I do?
as opposed to like making a scene for okay. Julia.
If they had a fireman's
That's it.
so if they had like a heated argument earlier in the day, she might have a motive to talk her. If she was like that.
Okay. So evidence being the fact that they had stormed out before and all those kinds of things, and this is kind of like.
I think, alright, so a couple things. First, she has a slender figure, and she goes to a country club, which tells me that she plays tennis. And a frying pan,
Good.
which means that she's
And
going
the
to
back
swing in the
kick.
frying pan. So she bashed him in the head, put him at the bottom of the stairs. And you can tell he didn't slip down the stairs because he has the drink still in his hand. And if you trip down the stairs, what do? You try to catch yourself, so you drop whatever's in your hand.
That is true. I did not point that
The
out.
glass
He
would
still
be,
does
the glass would be broken.
Do you think it's that frying pan now
No,
that
it's
she,
not.
no?
I mean,
Okay.
it might be that one. She's
Trying to cook
get
the blood off.
Ah!
Oh,
Whoa. If you go down the stairs,
Maybe.
just
Maybe
Now,
she's cooking this
Nick, Emmy, Crystal, Jenna were more of like a. You don't get the whole period, like.
No, I got something good. The other thing is that if he would have fallen down the stairs, the carpet probably would have been messed up from him like slipping.
It would have
and
soaked from his
It-
drink. Why is there still
Yeah, and
stuff
like
in the
it would
drink?
have been like all wrinkled and stuff. You know.
How about argument for the other side?
You're going
We can obliterate it.
Is John McCain or Martin Luther King in this argument?
A woman's not strong enough to take down a man. Are you kidding me?
Okay, so doesn't matter whether you're a king, not gonna really do it. And since it's a woman,
And I love how you got this
Besides that sexist argument,
She was pretty shocked.
She's shocked. She's like, oh wait, he actually died.
Northwell
Northwell
College
was like, what?
Northwell College Club.
Yeah.
Alumni.
She does look I feel like if he is out, I mean, who doesn't? Why would she?
Okay.
It was a suicide.
So you see genuine, like, oh my goodness, what in the world happened?
Yeah, but he didn't know about it. Yeah. He wasn't invited. It was just at his house. Wait, I gotta argue with you.
Too bad, I moved on.
He's
So
already
the claim is Margaret is lying. The main piece of evidence, Charles still has a glass in his hand. As a rule, when people fall downstairs, they drop what they're carrying, try to save themselves. So whether it be the mirror, the sconces could be kind of disheveled. I think, Byron, you said the drink's still in his hand. The beverage, there wasn't spilled all around on the stairs. But yeah, the argument would be when you fall, you try to put yourself out. So be an example of a Toulmin model, now obviously more of an entertaining one as opposed to types of statements and whatnot that you'll be making. But you make a claim, you have evidence, hey, the glass is still in his hand, then you have some kind of warrant link that's going to connect it and explaining, well, because the glass is in his hand, you would think that he would have tried to let go as he's making a fall. So that's how the Toulmin model works. Now, the more advanced one that we have now that we're going to go over, and no, this isn't part of your quiz that we're going to, and I'll zoom in on it. This isn't part of your quiz for Thursday, but this is things that we're certainly going to be using and going over and talking about with future arguments, as well as like midterm and all that kind of stuff. So above the warrant and the reasoning, you have two things. You have modality, and then you also have rebuttal. So above the warrant, linked from the warrant is modality and rebuttal. Obviously, we'll go over what those things mean here in a minute. And then below the warrant, you have what's called backing. I'll get to that here in a second. So modality, rebuttal. And then backing down here at the bottom.
Thanks for clarifying. That's true.
Where's Mr. Weber when you need him? Like, this would be the discussion to sit in on.
I would also like to see what his opinion was on the fact that she was a woman and be able to knock him
I was gonna say, I think whenever she came home, he was a little mad that she went to a party and she said like, I'm having company over. He's like, no, you're not. She's already drunk and was drinking. I think she was like pushing down the stairs and I was like,
I was just going to say that all that evidence is like hypothetical. It looks pretty hard to secondary facts.
It was a suicide.
No real evidence.
So modality, rebuttal, backing. What's this? You can now go wherever you want. We're not going to be adding anything else onto this. Okay? This is it. This is as advanced as we get. All right, backing. What have you been doing?
I'm sorry. Okay.
Backing. Essentially, it's additional warrants. Okay? So it's having more reasoning. It's a reasoning that allows that inferential leap to take place. Backing is basically going to be additional support for that warrant, more explanation as to how that evidence and that claim could go together. So going with the example that we had, the drink was still in his hand. Well, when he would fall, you would think he would be letting go of the drink in order to try to stop himself. Since he would be trying to stop himself, he could be hitting the mirror or the sconces or whatever, is hanging on the wall. So those things would kind of be disheveled as well. So it's just kind of giving more of a secondary, not necessarily secondary claim as the way that it says we're a second argument, but secondary support for that leap, for that warrant that you are making. Pardon? What do you mean?
At the end, they said the police ruled that it was an accident.
No.
No, they said he was dead.
They said.
Well, that was a
They
given.
said it was an accident.
Thanks for that clarification.
You really didn't know she was dead.
No, and that there was a wound to the head. So whether that wound was from the frying pan, backhand, forearm, that a strong female was
Too
able
short to reach
to,
the head. That's what I'm saying.
or it was from him falling on the stairs, there was a wound either way.
Exactly. And then every real man would
On your way out the door, I'm going to give all of you now a new gold badge that you can be detective. Anybody have a test coming up this week?
Yes.
Yes. That I know of.
Nicole, what's your test? Mr. Franks. All right. Nicole has a Mr. Franks. Is this a test or a question? Question. Okay. Nicole has a Mr. Franks quest.
A quest.
It's not a quiz. It's not a test. Nicole should study for her test. That's the claim. What would be some evidence as to why she should claim for her test? Study for her test. You're doing worse now. What's your quest on? Which Frankenstein? Okay, so we got our Frankenstein test. She has had daily quizzes thus far, because Mr. Frank's pretty close to it, likes doing his daily quizzes. So you've averaged a 70% on your daily quizzes, let's say. So she should study for her test so that her score can be higher. And so some of our evidence could be the fact that she's had quizzes, and what scores from them would be. What would be some warrants that would now link, or reasoning that would link why someone who has 70% on quizzes should therefore study for the test that they're going to take. Okay, so I've had 70%, not bad, but it'd be nice to kind of bring it up a little bit. So if I could perform better on the test, my overall score would probably go up. No, you get like 7. Yeah. So not a 7.
I'm not bad too good.
You're soft, but you'll break out of it.
The sophomore song. Oh, that's right.
Additional claims could be that by Nicole studying for her test, now what's going to happen? Eric, that you were mentioning before?
Wait,
Now, okay, or if you don't study, and be a burden to society and taxpayers all over, which Emma said she's worried about before. So those would all be what Carrick was doing, would kind of be like a secondary claim, secondary support, secondary backing to that reasoning. You have your main reasoning, but then you have additional layers that kind of go along with it. Modality and rebuttal. And these two end up being very important. Modality is the degree of certainty. It's the degree of certainty you have in your claim. You certainly want to avoid using the words
Possibly.
depending on the context, possibly might be acceptable. I would definitely want to avoid always and never. You know, if you study for your test, you will always get an A. Because you're dealing with that one, with an absolute where you're basically making a guarantee. And there's a couple reasons behind it. Obviously, you can't promise that something is always or never going to happen because there could always be kind of an exception to it. If your argument is that this is always the right thing to do, whoever's arguing against you, you've made their life simple because now all they have to do is find that one exception or that one situation where, well, what if this happens? Would that still then be the case? At which point, if you went always or never, now you're kind of stuck, between a rock and a hard place. Now, I would agree, maybe, possibly they're kind of wishy-washy. You don't really want to do those too often. Should I get this dress for junior prom? Maybe, possibly. Or prom, or tuxedo, tie color, all that kind of stuff is critical. So certainly, possibly, a maybe could be a little bit too wishy-washy. Things that we generally like, probably, likely, usually. Sometimes a lot of resolutions will have a qualification like more often than not. I think with the, we didn't actually do the debate, but I think with the male versus female teachers, the SPAR debate, I think the way it was worded was more often than not, women make better teachers than men. So it wasn't going always or never, but it was giving you an idea that generally this would be the case. Rebuttals. This is different. Listen up. This is different from a counter-argument, and this is where folks get confused sometimes. This is not a counter-argument where you're going to, do a rebuttal against what an opponent has said, but this is a rebuttal where you are identifying an exception to your claim. Basically, what are some intervening factors that could keep this from happening? So it's an acknowledgement that you are making. It is not a sign of weakness on your part. It is more of you kind of covering all your bases. So you should study for your test tomorrow that you're going to have in Mr. Frank's class, unless you really don't care about your grade, then I guess you don't need to. So that would be, or, you already have a 98%, so it's not going to hurt your grade too much should it actually go down. Or you shouldn't study for your test in Mr. Frank's, because let's be honest, he doesn't give anyone a name. So that's the point. Those would all be rebuttals, exceptions to the claim.
So, but normally, if you make a rebuttal, wouldn't you want to make a claim against the rebuttal? Right? Okay. It's like if you were making an argument, you can bring up in the closing fact or something
It's not that you are arguing against yourself. Like, let's say, so when we did our first, when we did the winning the debate notes, and we kind of said, hey, would you like to speak first or second? Some folks said I want to go first, I get to kind of set the tone and all that kind of stuff. Some people said, well, I want to go second because then I can kind of counter-argue whatever the other person said and I get final say. Some folks might do a rebuttal where you're addressing, whatever kind of issue and going, now, I understand that there could be some times when this argument doesn't make sense. And you kind of outline what those are. Those are exceptions. That's not the rule. Those would be like special case scenarios or situations where I understand this argument doesn't quite hold up. What you're essentially doing in a way is kind of diffusing a little bit of what the opponent would be able to say. You're kind of taking some of the wind out of their sails where they're not going to be able to pounce on you for it. You don't want to turn into, your schizophrenic self. We don't want Byron arguing against Byron as to why this Byron is right and this Byron is wrong. While entertaining and an interesting spectacle, it's not something from an argument standpoint that would hold up. But there's nothing wrong with going, now there are exceptions to, my overall reasoning for it. Like if, for the longest time, hot topic debate was always like abortion. It still is, certainly. And like an exception or rebuttal that some folks would argue would be, well, if it's a situation of rape, some folks would argue that then that would be a time when the mother could decide to have an abortion. So it was identifying these are exceptions to the general rule that would be thrown out there. It's not you making your argument weaker. It's not you changing your opinion about it, but it's you identifying that there could be some things. The Patriots will win the Super Bowl. Someone could certainly be making that argument before yesterday. Now, you could have, maybe Greg goes, the Patriots will win the Super Bowl unless Tom Brady gets hurt in the first quarter. Then I think the chances would switch over to the Rams.
Did you see this Robert Kraft?
Yes, yeah, it was just a full-on lip kiss.
I saw that.
At first it was more away from me.
So, up here. Aiden, let me dream again. I'm going to my nice little dream world where the Pirates will be contenders. Yes, it is. The Pirates could have one of the better starting pitching staffs in the National League. This is my grounds, this is my data, this is my evidence for a claim that the Pirates will probably make the playoffs this year. Not going to happen. I have my claim. They're going to make the playoffs. Notice the modality, probably, since it's before the season, we're not going, 100% all in faith here, and really we're going with about 0% faith, but we're going to pretend. Warrant. Experts agree that good starting pitching is critical to making the playoffs. So my evidence is that they have good starting pitching. What's the connection to that making the playoffs? Well, most experts would agree if you have good starting pitching, that's going to certainly help you make the playoffs. However, and this would be a clear sign of a rebuttal, injuries can quickly debilitate a major league pitching staff. Playoff teams traditionally are in the top 10 in team ERA and opponents' batting average. So I have backing and a little bit more modality here, where playoff teams traditionally, not always, but more often than not. The however lets you know that here's my little exception. Should a lot of injuries take place, then my argument might not be the same. Pirates will probably make the playoffs this year. Not going to happen. But maybe it will.
Hey, they won like the first 7 games of the season, and it was like, oh, playoff time.
Who knew? So, mixed up this time. It's time for you to start working on your term paper. Your term paper will take about 1 month to complete. It took me 1 month to complete mine. You and I work at the same pace, unless you don't care about your grade as much as I do. Of these statements up here, which one would be the claim? What's the argument that's being made? Julia? So this is our claim. It's time for you to start working on your essay on your term paper. What would be the evidence as to why you should start working on your term paper? Okay. Your paper's due in a month. You should start working on it because it's going to take you about a month. The backing and the warrant, you could argue that they're kind of like interchangeable. So which two statements would be the main reasoning, the warrant that would be linking? What's one of them? Okay, so yep, that would be one. Carrick, you and I work at the same pace. What do we have going on down here? Unless you don't care about your grade as much as I do, that would be the rebuttal. All right. Yeah, in the sense that just because it took me X number of hours doesn't mean it'll take you exactly the same amount of time, but generally we would be at about the same pace. So yeah, that would be a good thing. So for what we're going to do on Thursday, you're not going to have all of this. It's just going to be the 3 stages, but you can at least see how the advanced argument kind of sets itself up. Now, the next time you take on Zach in a spar debate, you have ethos here that you could go with his sexist comments, and you could use that to your advantage.
That is true.
You too.
He may like Martin Luther King, but he doesn't like women. And there was one Martin Luther King, and there are a lot of women.